One of the things that holds people back from buying an EV or renting an EV, as I did recently, is range anxiety. Can you even get to the place that you want to go? And for me, as someone who travels regularly with my family to different locations, we're trying to drive long distances. This is certainly top of mind. Recently, we drove a Tesla Model Y for the first time in South Australia, somewhere I've never been before in that part of the country. And we're driving some big distances, and we had some challenges with regard to charging the car. From planning to actually getting the car charged to even knowing which network we're supposed to use, it was all a bit of a learning curve. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the story about what happened so that if you're planning to get an EV or if you're planning a longer road trip sometime soon, hopefully it helps you out. By the way, if you want to get all of my notes about the Tesla Model Y and every other EV that I drive, click on the first link below in the description and I'll send everything right to you. All right, so first of all, there was a bit of confusion here about what charging networks we were supposed to use with this rental company. And I don't need to name the rental company. If you search for an EV rental, you'll probably find them for now. They're not sponsoring the video or affiliated in any way, so I'm not going to name them, but you can probably find them. Anyway, so previously we'd rented a BYD Atto 3 and also a Tesla Model Y. In fact, a few different EVs from this company in Western Australia. And based on previous past experience, they gave us a little fob that we could use to recharge for free using the ChargeFox network. And look, if you're not in Australia, maybe you don't have ChargeFox wherever you're watching or listening from. But in Australia, you're probably familiar with the ChargeFox charging network if you've been around EVs for a while. So I kind of jumped into the Tesla Model Y recently when we're driving it in South Australia. And I was kind of thinking, all right, we're going to go use the ChargeFox chargers because that's what we'd always done when we'd rented EVs from this particular rental company in the past. Now, I went straight from the airport where we got the car to a ChargeFox station that was 5 or 10 minutes away. And when I arrived at the charging station, I realized, hey, I don't have the fob. So I called the rental company at the airport and there was confusion on their end as well. At first they said, oh, just use the car key and that's how you can charge it, which was obviously incorrect. Tried it, didn't work. Called them multiple times and they said, oh, look, try the other charger. And then they said, oh, look, just go to a different location. Maybe that one's not working. It was a bit of a disaster, especially when we were tired, we were hot, we were hungry. We've got a crying toddler in the back of the car. It was really a bit of a nightmare. Anyway, so we went to a different ChargeFox station, same problem. In the end, I called the rental company back and I said, look, guys, we've been to 3 or 4 different ChargeFox locations. It's not working. I don't think this is working. Spoke to somebody different and they said, actually, yeah, sorry, we recently terminated our agreement with ChargeFox. We no longer give out fobs, so you can go and recharge for free using their charging stations. But if you go and charge at a Tesla supercharger, that bill comes back to us as a company, and currently we're not passing on those costs to you as the renter. So if you're watching this in Australia, this is a hot tip for you that can save you some money. And you might want to ask them about it, up to you. But in my recent experience in South Australia, if you take the Tesla to a Tesla charging station, yeah, it just charges and you don't have to pay for it. So that's what we ended up doing. That's the good news. The bad news is that in the southern part of South Australia, where we were down south of Adelaide, the Tesla supercharging options, they were kind of sparse. And where we were specifically down around McLaren Vale, Aldinga, there was none around there. So what we ended up having to do was make sure that we have enough charge available to get back up to the Tesla charging station. We ended up using the one at Glenelg, a bit closer to the city, a few times. So yeah, you just have to make sure that you've got at least 30% battery remaining so you can get up there. And then, by the time you get back to where you're staying or wherever you're going, keep it in mind that you're probably going to use quite a bit of the battery as well. But the good news is you don't have to pay for it. In terms of trip planning, it was no big deal. And it won't be a problem for you if you're staying relatively close to the city. But certainly be aware that you want to plan your charging stops. And also from my experience, both this recent time around South Australia and also previous visits to Western Australia, whether it's the ChargeFox stations or the Tesla supercharger stations that you find in the navigation display on the car or in the app for whatever you're using, just be aware that some of them might not be functional, serviceable. They might not even be there. We've had that experience in Western Australia in the past. We would find a place where there's supposed to be a charger, would go there and it's not there. There's nothing there. It's just in the middle of nowhere. It's just a red herring. So keep that in mind. But I think when you find one that you can rely on, you know it's there, you know it works, you know it's easy, just keep going back. That's kind of what we did in Western Australia in the past, and that's what we did this recent trip to South Australia. In future, we would like to do a bit more exploring further afield in South Australia. And in terms of planning to get somewhere, like for example, there's a drive through zoo somewhere. I think it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours drive from Adelaide CBD. I was kind of looking at the zoo location and then thinking, okay, can we actually go there? Are there any charging stations around there nearby there? And the answer I came to was no, there's probably no good chargers nearby that we can use. But I figured out that we can probably just fully charge in Adelaide and then go there and then return to Adelaide. I think we could do that in a single charge. So that's what I plan to do, hopefully on some future visit to Adelaide. And you'll need to make some similar calculations yourself. I've previously talked about just how bad the range guidance is on the BYD Atto 3 if you're driving long distances on a freeway or on a highway. I can't really talk about Teslas as confidently as I can talk about the BYD Atto 3. The reason for that is I just have a lot more experience driving the BYD Atto 3, certainly on freeways, open roads, highways, compared to the amount of experience that I have driving a Tesla, which is relatively little at this point. Yeah, on this recent trip, we did drive the Model Y on some highways, but really not more than an hour at a time, maybe not even an hour at a time. So I can't really talk about range for the Tesla Model Y as confidently as I can. But if you're interested in learning a bit more about just how risky it is to trust the range guidance coming from the BYD Atto 3, check out my previous video where I talked about that one. It's really quite eye-opening and important information if you're planning longer trips in the BYD Atto 3. Interestingly, when I was driving this Tesla Model Y in South Australia recently, had the radio on one day, and there was a news story that came over the radio that said that EVs are disappointing and maybe even deceptive with regard to the range guidance versus the actual range that you can get from those vehicles. But, and this is why it kind of sticks in my mind, it said the Tesla Model Y is the best out of all of the EVs in terms of the closeness between the advertised range, what it's telling you that you can actually get, and what you will get. So, look, I can't really say if that's true. That's just what I heard in this news story that came over the radio. But I thought it was kind of interesting because when I heard that news story, I was in the Tesla Model Y at the time. But let me know what you think. Is the Tesla Model Y better, worse, the same in terms of range guidance versus actual achieved range compared to other EVs? Which ones do you think are the best and the worst in terms of what they're telling you you might get versus what you actually get? But overall, I found it a pleasure to recharge the Tesla Model Y using the Tesla Supercharger network because it's so easy and it's free. We'd literally just park, connect the cables from the charger straight into the car, and just tap with the key card on the charger and boop, just going, charging, problem solved. It's so easy. Go for a walk, go get some groceries, go get a bite to eat, go get a coffee, whatever it is, come back in 40 minutes and you're fully charged. So it was really, really easy. I think it was actually faster than what I remember in previous times charging EVs. Now that I've got a bit more experience driving a bunch of different EVs and specifically in this Tesla Model Y, I'm gonna be a lot more confident on future visits to Australia and elsewhere if we end up driving Tesla Model Ys again. But there were a few tips and tricks that I've now learned about with regard to trip planning, whether it's leaving sufficient buffer or maybe actually leaving a lot of buffer if you're going to a charging station for the first time, just in case you get there and it's not serviceable or it's not even there. You want to make sure you've got enough battery remaining to get to some other one and maybe some other one after that if you're not sure. So keep in mind, you need to be very cautious. Yeah, but definitely it was a good overall experience with regard to charging the Tesla using the Tesla Superchargers. You don't have to pay for it. It's quick. It's easy. It was a real pleasure. And by the way, if you ever want to get in touch and we can connect and maybe I can feature your EV here on the channel in the future, drop me an email, get in touch. We'll see if we can make it happen. But these are just my experiences. This is just my opinion. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. Let me know if you think that I forgot anything important. If you've got any tips, tricks, or opinions about which EVs are the best and worst in terms of range, whether it's the advertised range versus the range you can actually get, or how to recharge them, any ways that you can plan longer trips. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you. Have a great day. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.